You're on the leader in pure classic country, 98.7 and AM 1580 WLIJ. And this weekend we say Viva Mexico as the NASCAR Cup Series will race for the first time in Mexico City at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez Sunday afternoon starting at 1 p.m. with coverage from the Motor Racing Network. And with me now once again from MRN, you know him as the lead turn announcer as well as host of the flagship afternoon drive program SiriusXM Speedway on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. From Barrie, Vermont, it's the Godfather, Dave Moody. Dave, once again, it's really special to have you here for another opportunity for the race fans of Middle Tennessee also to hear from you. Just thank you for your time this morning before those busy travel days ramp up.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Brandon. Good to hear from you. Yeah, it's going to be a busy week. There's no question about that. Not that they all aren't these days, but this one's a little extra.
There's a little extra to this equation here this weekend for sure. I think back to my U.S. history professor. He once had a favorite phrase for things he had to deal with in the classroom. He'd put up his hands in air quotes and say some things were a logistical nightmare. From everything I've heard about how teams and all the pieces that keep the NASCAR circus running are making their way from Brooklyn, Michigan, all the way to Mexico City, and then back again to Pocono Raceway the following weekend. I think that might be an accurate phrase for it. Yet somehow we talk about things like this being a big ordeal, but I mean, when it all comes down to it, these big projects, they just seem to come together when it comes to the sanctioning body. What does this whole moving process look like for teams from your perspective?
It's been an organizational juggernaut, to say the least, and you know, just for effect here, the original plan was not to go Michigan to Mexico City and then all the way back up to Pocono. The original plan, back before the schedules were finalized, the Mexico slot was supposed to be filled by Montreal, and things didn't come together on the Montreal promotional team's side of things. The I's didn't get dotted and the T's didn't get crossed. So in an effort to maintain an international presence, Mexico City stepped in where Montreal had been. Obviously, Michigan, Montreal, Pocono is a much nicer drive than Michigan, Mexico. Pocono. Yeah,
and I remember that being a big topic of discussion last season, and I was on a show last night and completely forgot about that fact that we were, thinking about Montreal before Mexico was the final choice. So I see how that probably would have been a little more convenient for the schedule as far as moving things. But I'm super happy that we've got the Cup Series there in Mexico City for the inaugural year, and I think NASCAR is promoting it very well, and all the stages set. We look back to last weekend there at Michigan International Speedway with Denny Hamlin, his third win of the season, coming there from the Irish Hills, and his first after his 700th start. He apologized to his father before unleashing the I beat your favorite driver line to the crowd, and man, that just unleashed the boos that he somehow seems to thrive on. At age 44, with another child on the way any day now with fiance Jordan, how impressive is it, Dave, that not only Denny's talent level behind the wheel is at the top of its game, but also his ability to thrive off of hatred from fans. It just we have some drivers that have gone on to say that they don't like it, or some that don't say anything. But he seems to be on that other end of the spectrum. He thrives off of it.
He really does. And in addition to the post race, I beat your favorite driver line, which always draws a reaction. You might recall a couple of weeks ago when we were racing in Texas during driver introductions, he came out on stage and gave the downward horns sign, which is kind of a slap in the face to University of Texas college football fans. Well, he did a very similar thing this past weekend in Michigan, came out on stage and held up his arms in the O signal, the OHIO, Ohio State, and you know how folks in Michigan feel about Ohio State. So, yeah, he is actively courting the hatred and disdain of NASCAR Nation, one city at a time.
But between him and Carson Hocevar, I really don't mind having some polarizing drivers in our sport. I think it's a wonderful problem to have, if you can even call it a problem. But speaking of Hamlin, he's one of the few former winners in Mexico City, winning in the Xfinity Series when he was a Cup rookie in 2006. Kyle Busch is the last Mexico City winner there at Hermanos Rodriguez in 2008 among active Cup drivers. That circuit in Mexico City, Davis, saw NASCAR Xfinity Series competition from 2005 to 2008. So I assume you had a good part in those broadcasts. What was that past experience like from the turns?
It was really pretty phenomenal. I remember the first year that we went down, we had 90,000 people for practice. That tells you how excited they were about that. They had a rooting interest in Adrian Fernandez, who was driving in a one-off for Rick Hendrick that weekend. He ended up not winning the race, but boy, they sure did like his chances. The course this time around is going to be a little bit different. We used a layout of the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez the last time we were there that did not include going into the baseball stadium, doing a lap around the outfield and going back out again. This time around, we're actually going to do that, so I think it will add even a little bit of extra flavor to the festivities. It's going to be a fun weekend, there's no question.
I love that it's going to showcase the crowd there with that stadium section. We see it in Formula One and Formula E, how impressive those crowds are there. No matter what's there in town, they're going to show up, and that's going to be a huge part of the weekend. Another big part of it I'm looking forward to is seeing Trackhouse Racing's Daniel Suarez, or as the late great Ken Squire named him at Darlington that one year, the Monterey Missile, as the one Mexican-born driver in the NASCAR Cup Series. How special will this weekend be for Daniel Suarez and his massive fan base, lovingly coined Daniel's Amigos?
It's going to be really special. There's no doubt. He's been making periodic trips to Mexico for almost the entire calendar year to try and build interest in this race, and he's had a lot of success in doing that. I spoke to his wife Julia this weekend, and she showed me his day-by-day, actually it's more like hour-by-hour agenda, beginning on Monday and going right through Sunday. They've screened everything off except for competition on race days. But aside from that, it's literally something every single hour for Daniel Suarez. He is Elvis Presley down there right now, and they cannot get enough of him. And he's such a wonderful ambassador for this sport any weekend, but particularly this weekend. He's given it his all and then some. I hope he doesn't wear himself out just getting ready for the race.
No doubt about it. He's a popular gentleman there in Mexico, and Daniel's Amigos are going to be there showing up for him. And it'd be really special, of course, if he could take the checkered flag back with him, too. Finally, Dave, I've heard some mixed responses from drivers over the last couple of weeks about the prep for the elevation factor, the 9,000 feet some of elevation, and then the lack of oxygen in the cockpit there in Mexico City. Some are talking about all the weeks of preparation they've been going through to get their body ready, but some, like William Byron, had a chance to speak with him at Nashville, and he kind of seemed to me like this was just another road course on the schedule, not too much to think about. So do you think maybe some of these drivers are in for an unanticipated challenge Sunday, or are these just athletes that are just really good at adapting to the task?
Well, they're really good at adapting to the task, but if they don't pay attention, it will bite them. I can tell you that, having been there, when the Xfinity Series went there for a number of years. Walking up a flight of stairs in Mexico City that wouldn't bother you at all here, at home. The air is very thin, so it's a test of both man and machine, because that thin air will actually talk to a couple of the engine experts this week, will probably rob 100 horsepower from the engines in these Cup cars. And it also, as you would well imagine, has an impact on downforce as well. Thinner air doesn't create the same amount of downforce, so they've really had to take that into consideration when they're setting up these cars and making some of the adjustments that they can make. So definitely a test of man and machine this weekend.
It'll be exciting to see the Viva Mexico 250. You can hear it right here on WLIJ Sunday, June 15th at 1 p.m. with our friends at the Motor Racing Network. Godfather, thank you again for your time today, and everyone here at WLIJ wishes you safe flights and plenty of legroom there in the cabin.
Thank you, my friend. That's always a bonus. I appreciate that very much, and thanks for being a part of the MRN family.